The southern colonies consisted of South Carolina, North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, and Georgia. Reasons to move to the southern colonies were fertile soil and flat land, which was good for farming, and it was hot, unlike in the New England colonies, where the soil was rocky and it was cold and had mountains and hills. The southern colonies had a longer growing season than all the other colonies. The New England colonies had a shorter growing season, while the middle colonies had a slightly longer growing season, but the southern ones had the best growing season out of all of them. Speaking of farming, the southern colonies had big plantations, and in those plantations they harvested tobacco. Back then they didn't know that tobacco was harmful, so if you had tobacco, you were considered a cool dude. Everyone wanted tobacco, so if you could make a lot of money by selling it, and since you didn't have to travel far for tobacco, you could get it for a lot cheaper, which is another reason to go to the southern colonies. And if you don't want to grow tobacco, you could also grow some other cash crops, like rice, indigo for dye, flour, and grains for bread. Another reason is that it was religiously tolerant. It was also a safe haven for Huguenots and Catholics. Another thing about the southern colonies was that if you were a wealthy white man, you could purchase slaves to work in your plantation farms, and if you were a poor person, you could become an indentured servant. In terms of education, the southern colonies had boarding schools and tutors. Only wealthy people could afford boarding schools and tutors. So if you weren't that wealthy, you could take a loan and become an indentured servant to work as a form of payment.